All right, everybody, welcome in. This is the Coach and Company podcast. We do this most every single weekday to support our morning show. If you are watching right now on YouTube or socials, hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button. That's the only way that this thing can grow. I am your host, the Coach. A little housekeeping items. If you missed any of the Coach and Bro show yesterday on our BTT YouTube page, I encourage you to go watch it on demand. All of our biggest pro wrestling news, and also today, you guys know, I have my own show on SiriusXM, channel 156, Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7. Today, the final show as we lead in to John Cena, his last night tomorrow in Washington, D.C. We'll have a live watch along for that as well for everybody, not just our premium members. So we've got a lot to get to over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, joining me as he always does, my guy who is starting to have as many jobs as I do, my man, Mikey P. Now, Mikey, you're not going to get so busy that you won't be able to hang out with me on the daily, will you?
This is my number one job, my number one priority. The reason I'm picking up more jobs is because I'm learning from you, Coach.
Kiss Up Mountain's a real thing. It is a real thing. So if you're new here and we see the numbers, we're growing every single day. We never go longer than 20 or 30 minutes. We do 2 or 3 topics, and rarely do they have anything to do with betting. We like to spread it out. But Mikey, last night we always like to recap game number 1 in week 15. And if the Bucks end up missing the playoffs, they have nobody to blame but themselves. But they are now sitting in a very unique situation, because they're up 28-14. A lot of people who bet the Bucks are pissed, and they should be. The Bucks defense cannot hold anybody. So when Todd Bowles, the head coach, calls his team out after the game, he's the defensive mind. He's the defensive coach, the guru, the reason he's a head coach. 7 F-bombs in 30 seconds. Mikey, that was as big of a letdown spot as maybe we've seen all year.
Yeah, and Todd Bowles has no one to blame but himself. We can talk about how comical it was to hear him. It's like your grandparents swearing when Todd Bowles swears. You're like, wait a second, what? For me, I look at this entire Buccaneers team as they did it to themselves. Just look at the other sideline, Coach. The Atlanta Falcons are dead in the water. And what did they do with no Drake London? Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson are our best offensive playmakers. We're going to feed them. Now, credit where it's due. They got Mike Evans the ball a lot. But Bucky Irving, have we heard of him? Rachaad White had 1 carry for 20 yards, and then they never went back to him. Use your playmakers, Todd Bowles. It is literally not that hard.
Bijan Robinson, 19 for 93, 8 catches for 82. Kyle Pitts, he was the only weapon that they literally had on the outside. Mooney, 3 catches, Sills 6. We're making these guys look like all pros, but Pitts, he had the 3 scores, 11 catches for 166. Todd Bowles, make an adjustment for God's sake. I mean, guard the dude. I will say that Mike Evans, boy, was he pissed at the end of the game, because he was the guy. He was the reason. 6 catches, 132. And when you have a 14-point lead, yeah, you should be pissed. That locker room should be pissed. But, Mikey, here's the silver lining, is that they are just a half game back. So let's say Carolina wins this week, and they are playing, where are they at right now? They're playing at the Saints. So the Saints beat the Bucks last week. So let's say they win. They'll have a 1-game lead. But here's the issue. It doesn't matter, because if the Bucks beat the Panthers twice, they'll win the tiebreaker. So the Bucks, their other game doesn't matter, because if they tie with the Panthers and they win in week 16 and week 18, they will win the tiebreaker. Have you ever seen a situation like this?
I haven't, and I love it. We've mentioned it over the last couple of weeks here on the brand, how these NFL schedule makers have got it right. I think about it on the NBA side. When the Pistons are battling for the number 1 seed in April, if they are, I don't want to see them playing the Sacramento Kings. It makes absolutely no sense. Mm-hmm. And football, the divisions matter more than other sports, because if you're the NFC South, whoever wins, there's only one and get in. You're not getting multiple teams from the NFC South, given how good the NFC West and the NFC North are. So these games absolutely matter. And who would have thought in August the Bucks and Panthers would be playing for the final spot?
Oh, man, it's really, really cool. And to your point, right now in the wild card race in the NFC, it is Chicago, San Francisco. They've got 9 wins. You would assume that they'll get to at least 10 or 11, even if they go 2-2. And then you've got Seattle at 10-3. So I don't think there's a scenario at all where they would do that. It's really frustrating as a football fan to watch a guy in Baker Mayfield, and he threw that bad interception, and so he's not blameless. But to have a leader like that, it's very, very rare. And I just wish they were a little bit better on defense, a little bit more well coached. Todd Bowles is kind of like Dan Campbell to me. They're a great coordinator, but they do not belong as a head coach. And I will stand on that. I don't know how Todd Bowles has gotten multiple chances at the head coaching gig.
There's just no in-game adjustments. All credit to Kyle Pitts. He's a very talented tight end. But at what point do you start changing your defensive scheme after Kyle Pitts? Especially as you noted, Coach, he's a defensive coordinator. And for Todd Bowles to not go after, but kind of talk about Baker Mayfield and say he should be pissed. He should want to put it on himself. How about you, Todd Bowles? Baker Mayfield has been cut from the Browns, the Panthers, the Rams. He's moved all over the NFL, and not once has Baker said it's everybody else's fault. So Baker will die on his own hill. He'll fall on his sword. There's no reason for Todd Bowles to go at his players. They're already pissed off enough.
You are watching or listening to the Coaching Company podcast weekdays. We try to get to every single day. He is Mikey. I am the coach. Now, this Sunday, incredible slate of 425 games. There are 5 of them. No 405s, just 5 425s. Here are those games. Green Bay, Denver, battle of first place teams. Lions, Rams, gigantic game in the NFC. Carolina, New Orleans, a huge game. Saints just beat the Bucs. Can they do it again against the Panthers? And I missed a game there. Oh, Tennessee, San Francisco. Obviously huge for the 49ers. And then there's this one. The Colts, just one game back. They started 7-1. They're now 1-4 in their last 5 games. But Mikey, he may not start. We may not get the payoff to the storyline. But the storyline's been amazing. Out of the game for 5 years, playing the hardest physical game that there is in North America. And Phillip Rivers has a chance to be on the field Sunday in Seattle in a playoff race. How bananas that we can actually say that sentence.
It's very bananas. Not the ideal situation for the Colts or for Phillip Rivers. We talked about a playoff race. This game has playoff implications on both sides. And you're going to Seattle? And you're going against that defense? I think Phillip Rivers is going to get a nice reminder that sometimes it's not always great to come back into competition.
He is a normal human being, just like you and I are. And when you play in the NFL or the NBA or in the WWE, this is something, and I was talking about it on Off the Ropes, as far as when you look at a player or a wrestler and they perform and you see them every single week. The one thing we don't think about, Mikey, is staying in shape, because it's a given. When players come in to training camp in July and August, they are expected. That's why there's these multi-million-dollar places that do what? Get these elite athletes in shape. You're not staying in shape running around the track at Odessa East High School in wherever, Louisiana. You're just not. You're a 44-year-old dad of 10 that is probably 30 to 40 pounds overweight that laughs, I don't know how weight. Yes, you do. So there's all the makings. But I worry for a pulled hammy, torn Achilles, all those types of things. I wonder if he's thinking about that, or if the Colts are as well.
That's a huge point, and something I thought of as we've been discussing it throughout the week is I'm going to go back to a guy, and may he rest in peace, Vontae Davis. This was a guy who stayed in the NFL for a little bit longer and then just abruptly retired at halftime. And I'm not going to make any jokes about his weight or his age, but Phillip Rivers, that should be a thought for the Colts. If he takes one big hit, man, not to say that he would cave to a big hit, But if that hit just doesn't feel right, now what happens to the Colts? Now you got to get Riley Leonard, who's practiced the last 2 days in full. All right, kid, get out there. Instead of putting it in his hands, I would almost rather have Phillip Rivers as insurance to come in if Riley Leonard isn't playing well, rather than have it vice versa, which it tracks to be.
What do you think? Because I've thought a lot about this. NFL locker rooms have a tendency to be a little bit more honest than NBA locker rooms because it's just, it's 60 some odd players if you count the practice squad. I wonder what his teammates, who a playoff run is not a given. Certainly a Super Bowl title in your career is not a given. So the Colts began the year thinking, man, we got a chance to be special. We've got a chance to be a high seed, maybe even a number 1 seed. And now at 8-5, they're on the outside looking in. And I wonder what his teammates, Mikey, if you put a lie detector on them, would say they think gives them a better chance to win. An old, out of shape Phillip Rivers legend, future Hall of Famer, or Mr. Leonard. I wonder what they'd say.
And I think that's where the conversation needs to be had. That's why I feel Phillip Rivers, it's a great story. It's fun to talk about. But the 52 players that will be in uniform on Sunday do not care about fun narratives. They care about, we were one of the hottest teams to start the season. So let's give this kid a chance. We really have nowhere else to turn. If Riley Leonard is not playing well, then let's bring in Phillip Rivers and put an end or a nice little touch on the Cinderella story that is. But if you're talking to those players, I guarantee you they say, I don't care about entertainment. I want to win this football game.
I think I've called him Miles Leonard at least 3 times in the last 24 hours. Doesn't he play for the Blazers or something?
Yeah, he did. He's another one. Got himself out of the game early, and now he's like a musician or something. It's so weird.
Yeah, very, 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 very weird. All right, topic number 3. This one's it's a little bit concerning. There are players sometimes, Mikey, that for whatever reason they are labeled a certain thing, and when you miss a lot of time, like a Zion Williamson or a Joe Burrow, you're labeled as injury prone. And we've seen last week or the last 2 weeks how the Bengals are different when Burrow's in the lineup. Now, he had one of the all-time disastrous 10 minutes of playing time against the Bills, but they wouldn't even have been in that game the way that they were without Joe Burrow. So he met with the media the last couple of days, and he looked very melancholy. He looked very down. He looked very sad. And he said, if I'm not having fun playing this game, then why am I out here? And normally you don't hear a quarterback who's active, who just got back with his team, that should be in his prime, that should be excited. And he's already got his bag. He already got paid when they were having that 3-headed monster. So I wonder what's really going on with Joe Burrow and why he's doing these very reflective quotes at this time.
The number one comparison that comes to mind is Andrew Luck. And I've got a stat here for you, Coach. In 86 games played, Andrew Luck was sacked 174 times. In 73 games played, Joe Burrow has been sacked 203 times.
Wow, less games?
Less games, and highly surpassed that mark from Andrew Luck, who left because there was no more enjoyment in football. And we just saw Andrew Luck a couple weeks ago go viral because he's celebrating.
Yeah, that was great.
He's finding his love back, not just for life, but for the game of football, because he's not getting thrown into the ground. Now, I'll decode a bit. I think Joe Burrow is simply sending a message to the front office. Guys, all I'm asking for is a left tackle, an offensive line. Please just keep me upright. Let's win some games. Let me be healthy and play the game I love. But this is concerning.
It should be an incredible situation. He's got all the weapons. And it's just he plays for a really badly run organization. They've got a really bad owner who refuses to admit he is filthy, filthy, stinking rich. These owners that with a salary cap, I might add, it's not baseball. So how are you this bad when basically you've got to spend up to a certain threshold, but yet you still don't do it. And yet you still, it's kind of like he's the anti-Jerry Jones a little bit. Is that Jerry Jones will spend the money on players, but hasn't put together a really good team. Cincinnati won't do either one, Mikey. And it's unfortunate. And I wonder if Joe Burrow wants to get out of town before it's too late and he starts to go over the other side.
I'm almost wondering if Joe Burrow thinks it is becoming too late already. Coach, I don't want to make the comparison, but I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, unfortunately, almost like a baseball team in Major League Baseball. How many times do you see these high level superstars get traded for 5 young players? Maybe 2 young players become something. You're the Bengals. You just paid Trey Hendrickson a $16 million raise. I think he played all of 4 games this year. You know who's the happiest man in Cincinnati right now? Trey Hendrickson. He didn't have to deal with losing. Yeah, his body hurts a little bit, but that hit, that flexor strain, it's a little easier when you've got an extra 16 million to deposit into the bank. But for Joe Burrow, you're hurt. What do you do?
Well, Trey also, he's going to be a free agent. So he won't be around to help the defense out for Joe Burrow. And I get this. I think one of the things I get really frustrated with is I'll go through these peaks and valleys with social media and having multiple shows, having a radio show. Part of it is promotion. And I try to engage and I try to talk back and forth, but it gets very, very difficult because 90% of people are just completely negative. When it comes to, they can't have a discussion. They can't come on a show and have an intelligent discussion like you and I have on the daily. Years ago, I asked Vince McMahon, who's a billionaire, and I think he's worth 5 or 6 billion. And a lot of people need to understand that there's people that live in a different world than the one that we all live in here on Earth, where we walk around with our feet in front of the other. And I asked Vince, I said, why do you go to the show every single day? And this resonates with me. I will continue to tell the story throughout the rest of my life. He said, you got to wake up with purpose. He goes, you can only count your money for so long. People look at Joe Burrow and they say, why is he complaining like this? This guy's making over $200 million. Joe Burrow's never been about the money. Joe Burrow, if you look at all of his press conferences, Mikey, he's been about how do I try to put the best team around me? And I'm a really good guy who plays football as well. And I think right now he's at a point where he's not thinking about the money. He's thinking about what can I do to enjoy myself and make myself get out of bed. And for people who can't understand that or don't understand that life does not just go by for everybody, I think we've got to have some compassion for that.
Compassion and coach, I'm going to take a second here. I'm very passionate about this because let's call it what it is. Losing sucks. Do you remember when Joe Burrow came out of LSU? We had Joe Cool, the slick back hair, the cigar. He's reunited with Jamar Chase. They go on to the Super Bowl. We're like, oh, Joe Cool is about to live for legacies in the NFL. I don't want to bring up bad memories, but like they had some great rivalry games against the Kansas City Chiefs, some of the best games we've seen in this decade. And now we're talking about this Joe Burrow still love the game. Talking about a guy who bought a Batmobile. Does he still love the game? We should not be talking about this. It's a disservice to the Bengals fans, to the franchise, to Joe Burrow, and to the NFL.
If you guys missed that sound, I want to play for it right now. And you guys, you form your own opinion about what this sounds like to you. Cut 1.
If I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for? So that's the mindset I'm trying to bring to the table.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it seemed frustrating.
There's just a lot of things going on right now.
Football related, personally?
All the above. Like you said, there's nothing. All we can do is focus week to week and try to win games. I don't think anybody's really thinking about the playoffs right now. That's within reach, but on our fingertips. So we just got to keep doing what we're doing and try to get better.
Clearly did not want to be sitting there answering those questions. Also, I got to thinking as I was watching it, and this is why we watch stuff over and over, that I was just recently around Tiger Woods. I was right by his restaurant, and he just did an interview for his Hero World Challenge last week, Mikey. And the reporter kept asking, when are you going to get back to competitive golf? When are you going to? And eventually he looked at it and said, Guy, he goes, I just want to be able to go out and play golf with my son. Something that I love to do, as you guys know, every single day. And so the one thing that he also said in that interview was it's getting harder and harder to mentally attack the length of time that it takes to come back from these injuries. Do you think, Mikey, that maybe Joe Burrow has had so many significant injuries and the amount of effort he's had to put in just to get back to the start line might be getting to him a little bit?
It absolutely is getting to him. Coach, I'm going to speak for myself. That's heartbreaking. Some people will say, oh, he's bitter, he's upset. Like, no, that's heartbreaking because that is one of the most young, talented quarterbacks in the NFL. And you just think time and time again. I'll look at another guy who's injury prone, so to speak, in the NFL, Christian McCaffrey. You know why we don't get that tone? Because the 49ers are consistently a threat in the NFC. So for me, I don't want to say it all comes down to losing. But when you're putting in all this time and all this strain on your body to get back to being in football shape, and you come back and your team's 3-6, 4, like what am I getting healthy for? And then you're like, all right, well, next off season, and then time and time again they don't deliver.
And you can't say anything either. You can't walk into the guy 5 lockers down and say anything, because what's he going to say back to Joe Burrow? Show up for more than 3 games in a row. Show up. And it's a tough thing to be in. And then there's the jealousy of the contract. That's a very real thing too, for players that get paid that don't show up. All right, that's going to do it for today. Do not forget housekeeping. Off the ropes today, 2 to 4 Eastern time. All things John Cena. We'll have a live watch along Saturday night. We're going to start at 7:45 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be free to everybody. Not a premium pop-up. Will be no Saturday morning show this week. We will have a live Sunday morning show, 10 a.m. Eastern time. All right, for Mikey P, producer man, I'm the coach. We'll see you next time right here on the Coach and Company podcast. Have a great day.